Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on Facebook, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and talklawradio.com. We're going to be talking about the U.S. strike on Iran and whether it was justified under just war theory. Be discussing that with Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army retired, Jeffrey Addicott, a full professor of law and director of the Warrior Defense Project at St. Mary's University School of Law. Professor Addicott, you last joined me on Talk Law Radio on October 21st, 2023, and we discussed just war theory then too in regards to the Israeli-Hamas conflict. Well, welcome back.
Oh, it's great pleasure.
So I wanted to talk first about some of your accomplishments, and forgive me for starting so far back in time, but I was interested in learning when you joined the Army and how your career advanced there.
Sure. I was a student at the Alabama Law School. Army recruiters up in the hallway. I had a couple of people lined up and I grabbed them. They didn't talk me into joining the Army as a JAG officer. And my first assignment was in Germany because that was my conditions. I said, I'll join if you send me to Berlin or Italy. I was single. Well, very patriotic anyway. Let's get a chance to see the world, serve my country. And I had a 3-year period. Enjoyed it so much, I stayed for 20 years.
Okay. So for the listeners that may not know what that job was like, give us a brief idea.
That's a great job. I went to Berlin for 3 years. So right out of law, I'm doing murder trials. This is when Berlin was occupied, and it was divided into 4 sections: the British, French, us, and the Russians. And so I was in charge of all the American issues sector. Did that for 2 years, and then I went to airborne school en route to Korea, where I was command judge after conference, and went to the Korean Air School, and then was transferred from San Antonio, Texas, and at that time, Congress had mandated that all 5 Green Beret groups in the Army must now have a lawyer. So I raised my hand and said, I want a job. I'd already been to Air Force School and Korean Ranger School. I went through an abbreviated course, Q course, and became the group judge of the Special Forces group out of Washington. And then I worked in the Pentagon later after that. I taught at our JAG school, National Law Institute, and I also worked my way up to be the senior lawyer for all 5 special forces at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I retired out of the Study Command in Miami, and I was deputy judge advocate there. And then came here to Texas, began as a law professor.
Can you say, are you allowed to, what legal questions you gave advice about when you were advisor for Special Forces?
Well, that would take hours and hours. It's on 4 conflict deployments. Went to Haiti. I was the senior legal advisor also for all the Green Berets. So I met with my Haiti counterparts, and we planned to do Haiti in 1995. It was a very tense time. I remained single for about 2 years ago. The family who lived below us, I got wife and 2 girls. But negotiated the rules of engagement. Initially, the Canadians wanted us to go right over just a pistol. And I objected to that as a registry. So we were able to come in fully armed and had to use those arms. So also, as I indicated, other worked against the also and many trips down there. Worked to work against the FARC, Colombia, Ukraine, 8 trips. So had a quite very interesting first. Again, I was in operational international law for my expertise. Jumped out a lot of airplanes.
Wow, that's quite an exciting time for you. So you've given over 5,000 speeches and you've testified before Congress, and you're a regular contributor to media like Fox, MSNBC, CNN, BBC, OAN, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today. How did you learn terrorism law before terrorism law was a law school curriculum?
Well, in the Army operations law, we actually developed operational law in the 1980s, and I was at the school in Charleston, and actually put together the major map. And so operational is associated with combat operations that are not special forces are all about. Engage in direct missions, engage working behind enemy lines, dealing with terrorist issues. So I kind of did it in the real world for some time, and then in 2000, it occurred shortly thereafter. People thought about the term terrorism law. Terror can't. Well, the first people that came up with the idea of calling it because war on terror things we've never really done. We've never really been virtual state. One nation goes to another fighting a group. They had a lot of attributes, a lot of legal issues. Went to prepare and work with the administration. And this has a law professor worked with Northern Command. So a lot of interesting times. No, politics is not, as you know, politics are power. Never say you're and vice versa. If the Democrats are Republicans, so what do you do? It's always dark cloud of politics, serving to do operations.
Tell us about your teaching about the law of war and human rights in Eastern Europe and Latin America. Were the people of those countries you were teaching receptive to these new ideas?
Well, yes. Again, in my military career, collapse of the Soviet Union, 1991, thereabouts, a lot of countries that were, trying to adapt to new realities of fledgling democracies. And first mission was assigned to go down to Peru, Eastern Europe, but Peru, because the Peruvian government at that time was in a death struggle with Fidel Castro. Lima was attacked by Gregory Iglesias for power in the city. And my mission was to train the entire military to fight because Fidel but sometimes the military engage in abuses. So I was asked by the commander to assist me in training the entire. So we developed a curriculum, just your models, and then from there, everybody decides to do the same thing. So we say it interesting.
Okay. So in the next segment, we're going to be talking about just war theory. Can you give us a brief definition or explanation of just war theory?
Sure. Just war. And the other was just what are the rules that you have to fight the war? If you kind of look at history of the modern era, democracies don't fight each other. We were started by totalitarian regimes. And so the just war theory that came out of Europe, and that's been replaced. It's been supplanted by the United Nations. When we talk about the just war theory, but really it's measured can't be war. It's measured by the UN Charter, done in 1955. And in the UN Charter, basically it says you may not go to war unless you're acting in self-defense. So if you attack another country, you're not acting in self-defense. Generally, you're, and therefore, the UN Charter also recognizes in Article 51 that every nation has the inherent right to defend itself. You don't need the UN Charter to tell you that. For example, if we know lawyers, if someone assaults you on the street, you don't have to stand there and be assaulted. You defend yourself. And the law recognizes that. Same thing in the international sphere of warfare. So if you are the victim of an aggressive attack by another nation, you can respond without the United Nations giving you permission as Security Council. Article 51 describes that. And you can get some of your friends to come with you to join in the war.
Okay,
so that's really major is who threw the first punch. If you threw the first punch, you're the bad guy. And the other side is responding to self-defense.
we got to take a break. We'll be right back. We're back on Talk Law Radio with Professor Jeffrey Addicott, who is an expert in terrorism law and special forces and security. And the reason I start with just war theory is because when I was at St. Mary's, we went over to Innsbruck, and that was one of the classes, and so that was one of my best memories. And I guess I had forgotten that it was folded into the UN.
Yeah, so the UN Charter is a modern foundation. Just law theory is kind of very loose and they supply a lot of legitimacy. When nations sign up to join the charter, they agree to subsist peacefully. That's Article 2.3.2.4. They agree that they will not use violence to disputes. So if a nation does engage in threat, then it's two avenues. One, the nation has been attacked and it's more self-defense. But also the Security Council has a special responsibility, and there are 5 permanent members. They can vote if all 5 permanent members agree to authorize the use of violence, lawful violence, against a particular nation that they have deemed to be aggressive.
Okay. Well, I also want to talk about the War Powers Act or the War Powers Resolution. I saw in the Associated Press was quoting Lindsey Graham, and because there was a vote today to limit the president's authority to continue this operation. So tell us, what is the War Powers Act or the resolution, and what does it seek to achieve?
Okay, so we go the way back machine, 250 years, of course, was declared our independence. When the founders got together to draft the Constitution, they specifically gave war-making powers to the president, the executive branch, under Article 2, as the commander-in-chief. He has the absolute authority to make war under his own constitutional power. They also gave Congress the power to make war under Article 1. Congress has the power to declare war. Now, the genius of the founders is, as you know, their premise is that man's no damn good. They wanted to set up checks and balances. They didn't want one of the branches to get too much power. They believed in limited government. So they set up a friction between the two, so they can watch each other. Now, Congress does have the power first. They supply the money to the president. But make no mistake about it, the president has the inherent and lawful authority under the Constitution to make war, and presidents have done ever since the Republic started without going the Congress. The last time that the Congress actually declared war was World War II. We've had a lot of wars since then. Now, sometimes Congress does give an authorization for use of military force to the president. Sometimes they don't. Illustration, President Obama picked up the phone, told the military to attack Libya. Never went to Congress. He actually went to the United Nations to get their smile. That war lasted 7 months. Not a peep out of the media, hardly. Did he have the authority to do it? Yeah, absolutely. President Trump has lawful authority. So the War Powers Resolution was passed in 1973. It was vetoed by President Nixon. And it's unconstitutional, clearly. Every case that has gone up where somebody has said that the president violated the War Powers Act, whether it's against Obama or Bush or Trump, it never goes anywhere. Because the court says, this is a political question, we're not getting involved.
Okay.
The Supreme Court has never ruled on the constitutionality of the War Powers Act. Clearly, every lawsuit that takes constitutional law understands it's unconstitutional. One branch of government do not restrict the power of the other branch of government. And the founders did not put the War Powers Resolution in the document. They popped up 175 years later with some individuals that thought they're smarter than the founders. No. So it's really politics. It means nothing. And no president has ever complied with the War Powers Resolution. They might send a letter to Congress saying consistency with the War Powers Resolution. But if it ever gets to the Supreme Court, it will clearly be struck down. And look at it another way. Suppose President Trump says, I'm going to sign an executive order where Congress must report to me within 60 days if they spend any money on pick out your choice.
Mm-hmm.
People would say, clearly, you can't do that. You're getting into their business to appropriate funds. Why would it be all right for them to get into the president's authority to make more? It's not.
That makes it really clear. I like that analogy. Does it bother soldiers when there's not support on one side or the other?
Well, it bothers soldiers when you've got elected officials declaring that we're going to lose. As I believe one member of the House recently said, and he said that the troops are going to be disappointed or lose or whatever the words were. I mean, this war's 5 days old, and you're predicting that your country's going to lose. No, I mean that's ridiculous. So soldiers are basically a special type of breed. When we were in the military, I didn't care if you're an adulterer, a heterosexual, a homosexual, I didn't care what color your skin was. It's just we all bleed green. We don't think politics. I went in the military, I was a Democrat from Alabama. I came out of the military, looked around, everybody in Alabama was Republican. We just don't think about that stuff. We are patriotic. We want to serve our country. We follow the orders that are given to us by the commander-in-chief. It's a great camaraderie. Because all the things that people, fight about and throw food around and have this, this rhetoric that we're hearing today, it's not us.
Okay. Well, God bless America and God bless our troops. So I was using my outline for just war theory, so you can modify that as you see fit. We had talked about that it has to be self-defense, and so
Yes.
I kept wondering, why did President Trump order this strike? Was it just the opportunity that all of Iran's leaders were sitting in the same place at the same time? Or do they have intelligence that they're not sharing with the media?
Well, the fact that the leaders are sitting at their building does not give us the authority to kill them. We have to craft it that will act in self-defense. Now, when we choose to act in self-defense, it's up to us. There's no time clock. So the Iranians have been very hostile to our country. You can go onto the internet and look for their actual death to American march in the streets. And that kind of gives you a picture of what their attitude is. And the taxes through their proxies. Hezbollah, for example, during President Reagan's term, they killed over 200 Marines. We didn't respond. During the Iraq War, we know the Iranians were supplying to the terror groups roadside bombs and materials more than the expertise. So that was their, we didn't do anything about that. The key to this particular attack, the president has ordered, actually goes back to the attack by Hamas against Israel on October 2nd. The Israelis had the right to respond on Article 51, this is massive assault, where thousands were civilian innocents were murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And Article 51 allows you to get any other country that wants to support you, because the Israelis were absolutely 100% in the right to respond to self-defense. They don't have to go to the Security Council. President Biden said, we will support you. We join with the Israelis. And that war has never ceased. So President Trump is carrying forward with our response with the Israelis acting as self-defense, because the Iranians immediately entered the war on the side of Hamas, and they attacked Israel. And Israel responded, we responded. So this war has been going on for quite some time. There's a little lull in fighting from the last time that we bombed their nuclear facilities, but it hadn't ended. And so President Trump decided to re-engage based on the activities of the Iranians, particularly to seek to develop weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, rebuild the missile program. And so he had every legal right under the UN Charter to engage in this attack. So the rhetoric about the far left is illegal, et cetera, which is bilious, because it's not true, and there's no legal basis to what we say whatsoever.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now that you explained it that way. So that there's a just cause. One of the elements of just war theory that I saw was there an imminent threat? But you're saying it doesn't need to be imminent?
No, the only issue is are we at war with the Iranians, and the answer is yes. So the other thing you can plug it in, and it's also, by the way, yeah, there's an imminent threat. When there's chance death to America, they tell you they want to kill you. They're developing nuclear weapons. You gotta believe it.
Mm-hmm.
The time to act is before they get nuclear weapons, not after. Then the states go way up. It's not a totalitarian regime of getting nuclear weapons. You've got to do it before they get the bomb, not afterwards.
So is it wrong for President Trump to be talking about regime change?
Well, not really, because our condition now is unconditional surrender. This president doesn't believe these Harvard term paper type activities. People bring their hands and wonder, what are they going to do? Nation building. His idea is that's our terms. We set the terms very clearly. What comes next? We don't really know. You know, if whatever follows, they will not have nuclear weapons capability. They will not have missile capability. And they will not be funding other terrorist organizations around the region. So whether that's a religious basis, government that pops up, or looks like the old Shaw, that's their business. We're not in the nation building. So people that fixate, again, critics of President Trump, they're not even doing Monday morning quarterback. This is 5 days into the war. And they're harping like a bunch of old ladies in the old folks home.
Okay, we got to take a break.
This president has a proven record of success. Where has he fallen down in everything? It was brilliant against ISIS. People predicted it would be a disaster. We know who Tom Brad. His victory, of course, over the Iranians is going to be just
we got to take a break. Be right back.
Most families don't realize they have hidden legal blind spots until it's too late. Wills, trusts, Medicaid planning, even protecting a business. These are the kinds of issues attorney Todd Marquardt helps uncover before they become problems. Todd is the host of Talk Law Radio, where each week he guides listeners through the legal challenges families, veterans, and business owners face, while showing them the practical steps to protect what matters most. Catch Talk Law Radio, Saturdays at 11 a.m. on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 6:30 a.m. The Word, and now in Houston on AM 1070 and 103.3 FM The Answer, or anytime on YouTube. Planning isn't just about documents. It's about peace of mind, security for loved ones, and building a legacy that lasts. Don't wait for a crisis. Do it before you die.